There's a moment in every person's life when they realize the brutal truth. The world doesn't care about your feelings. It respects your power. Right now you have a choice. You can keep living as prey, getting walked over, dismissed, forgotten, or you can master the psychological weapons that separate the hunters from the hunted. This isn't about becoming cruel. This is about becoming untouchable. Most people die having never commanded real respect. They spend decades chasing approval, begging for attention, accepting scraps of recognition. They smile when they should be silent. They explain when they should withdraw. They give when they should withhold. And in the end, they wonder why nobody takes them seriously. But there's another path, a darker path, one walked by those who understand that respect isn't given, it's taken. That influence isn't inherited, it's engineered. That power isn't accidental. It's architected through precise psychological maneuvers that most people are too weak to execute. Today, you learn 7 psychological weapons that will transform how people see you, treat you, and remember you. Master these, and you'll never be dismissed again. Ignore them, and you'll remain exactly where you are, invisible, forgettable, powerless. The clock is ticking. Choose now. Picture this: you send a text to someone you consider important. Hours pass, no response. You send another, still nothing. Finally, a bland reply days later with some transparent excuse. You accepted it. You always do. Or maybe it's the meeting where your ideas get stolen by someone louder. The social gathering where you're introduced last and forgotten first. The moment when someone cancels on you with zero notice, knowing you'll just smile and say, "No problem." These aren't isolated incidents. They're symptoms of a deeper disease. You've trained people to disrespect you. Every time you chase, you become less valuable. Every time you accept poor treatment, you advertise that you deserve it. Every time you explain yourself to people who didn't ask, you hand them the knife they'll use to cut you down. The fake smile when someone interrupts you mid-sentence. The hollow, "We should catch up soon," from people who ghost your messages. The way conversations die when you speak, but light up when someone else enters. The colleagues who take credit for your work, while you sit silently, telling yourself you're being professional. The friends who only call when they need something, disappearing the moment you might need them. You feel it, don't you? That familiar sting of being treated as optional, replaceable, convenient. It burns because deep down, you know you're worth more than this. But knowing isn't enough. Worth isn't what you feel inside. It's what others perceive and respect. And right now, they perceive weakness. Every slight, every dismissal, every moment of disrespect is data. It's telling you exactly how the world sees you. And the world sees you as someone who accepts whatever they offer. Someone who won't fight back. Someone safe to ignore. But what if I told you this could change? What if the same people who dismiss you today could fear losing your attention tomorrow? This isn't motivational fantasy. This is psychological warfare backed by centuries of observation and research. Niccolò Machiavelli understood it in 1532 when he wrote that it's better to be feared than loved. Robert Greene documented it across 48 laws of power. Modern psychology has proven it through countless studies on social dominance and influence. Dr. Robert Cialdini's research on psychological influence reveals that people assign value based on scarcity and effort required for access. When you're always available, always agreeable, always accommodating, you signal low value. The Stanford prison experiment, controversial as it was, demonstrated how quickly people adapt to power dynamics based on perceived authority and psychological positioning. History is littered with individuals who wielded immense influence, not through kindness, but through strategic psychological positioning. Napoleon commanded loyalty through calculated unpredictability. Steve Jobs built Apple's culture through controlled scarcity of his approval. Margaret Thatcher earned the nickname Iron Lady, not through warmth, but through unwavering psychological boundaries. These weren't accidents. They were applications of dark psychology principles that most people are too afraid or too ignorant to employ. The uncomfortable truth is that human beings are wired to respect what they cannot fully control or predict. We value what requires effort to obtain. We follow those who demonstrate quiet, unshakable authority. The research is clear. People who employ strategic emotional distance, controlled availability, and psychological boundaries are rated as more competent, more attractive, and more worthy of respect than those who are perpetually accessible and agreeable. But here's what separates the truly powerful from the merely informed. They don't just know these principles, they embody them. Right now, you exist in one of two psychological states. The first is the approval seeker, constantly monitoring others' reactions, adjusting your behavior to maintain harmony, giving pieces of yourself away to anyone who asks. You live in fear of conflict, rejection, disappointment. Your happiness depends on external validation that never comes consistently enough. This version of you explains too much, apologizes too often, and accepts treatment you'd never tolerate if directed at someone you love. You're the backup plan, the safe option, the person others turn to when their first choices aren't available. You've become an emotional service provider, always giving, rarely receiving, never truly valued. But there's another version of you, one that exists in the shadows of your potential. This version doesn't chase, it attracts, doesn't explain, it demonstrates. Doesn't seek approval, it commands respect. This version of you moves through the world with quiet certainty, speaking less but carrying more weight. When you enter a room, energy shifts. When you speak, people listen. When you withdraw, they notice. This isn't about becoming cruel or manipulative. It's about recognizing that respect and kindness are not the same thing. You can be generous without being weak, helpful without being taken advantage of, kind without being foolish. The psychological shift from approval, seeking to respect, commanding isn't just about changing behavior. It's about changing your entire relationship with power. Instead of giving it away freely, you learn to use it strategically. Instead of making yourself smaller to fit in, you take up the space you deserve. This transformation begins with understanding that you are not responsible for managing other people's emotions, but you are responsible for managing how others perceive and treat you. Which version will you choose? The one you've always been, or the one you're about to become? The first weapon in your psychological arsenal is one of the most powerful and least understood: strategic silence. Most people are terrified of silence. They fill every pause with words, every gap with explanation, every moment of tension with nervous chatter. This is precisely why silence has become such a devastating weapon for those who master it. When someone attacks you verbally, your instinct is to defend, explain, justify. Wrong move. The moment you react, you've handed them control. Instead, let silence hang in the air like a blade. Count to 5, 10. Watch them squirm as they realize their attack bounced off your composure and landed back in their lap. Silence forces others to reveal themselves. A colleague tries to undermine you in a meeting with a passive-aggressive comment. Everyone expects you to respond, to defend yourself, to play their game. Instead, you simply look at them for 3 long seconds, then turn back to the discussion as if they hadn't spoken. The room feels the shift. Their attempt at dominance becomes obvious desperation. Machiavelli wrote that, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." Silence is the ultimate appearance management tool. It makes you mysterious, thoughtful, powerful. While others expose their insecurities through constant talking, you remain an enigma. The psychology is brutal and effective. Humans project meaning onto silence. They assume you're processing something important, holding back something significant, or simply operating on a level they can't reach. The truth. Sometimes you're just choosing not to waste words on people who haven't earned them. But silence isn't just about not speaking. It's about strategic withdrawal of your attention and energy. When someone consistently disrespects you, you don't argue or explain. You simply become less available. Your responses get shorter. Your enthusiasm dims. You stop investing emotional energy in their presence. This psychological withdrawal is more powerful than any argument because it can't be fought. They can't debate your silence. They can't manipulate your absence. They can only feel the growing distance and wonder what they did to lose access to you. Master this, and you'll never again waste energy on people who don't deserve it. But there's something even more powerful than strategic silence. The second psychological weapon is strategic indifference. The art of remaining emotionally untouchable regardless of what others say or do. Most people are walking emotional slot machines, reacting predictably to every pull of their triggers. This makes them easy to manipulate, control, and ultimately disrespect. Strategic indifference doesn't mean you don't care about anything. It means you don't allow others to dictate your emotional state. Someone tries to provoke you with an insult. You respond with the same energy you'd give to someone commenting on the weather. A person attempts to make you jealous by flaunting their success. You congratulate them with genuine disinterest and move on. The power lies in the complete absence of the reaction they're seeking. Think about it. Every manipulation technique relies on getting an emotional response. Guilt requires you to feel guilty. Anger requires you to get angry. Jealousy requires you to feel threatened. Remove the reaction and their weapon becomes useless. Picture this scenario. Someone at work tries to get under your skin by praising a colleague for work you actually did. The old you would have felt that familiar surge of injustice, maybe spoken up, maybe stewed in resentment. The new you smile slightly and say, "That's nice." Then immediately redirect the conversation to something else. Their attempt to wound you dies in the water. This isn't numbness. It's selective emotional investment. You save your emotions for people and situations that deserve them. Everyone else gets your polite, professional, utterly unshakable surface. They can't hurt what they can't reach. The psychological effect on others is profound. People become desperate to crack your composure, to find the button that makes you react. This desperation makes them reveal their own insecurities and weaknesses while you remain an immovable force. Research in emotional regulation shows that people who maintain consistent emotional states, regardless of external pressure, are perceived as more competent leaders and more desirable social connections. You become someone others want to understand, to impress, to be around, simply because you can't be easily moved. But indifference alone isn't enough. Sometimes you need to turn their own weapons against them. The third weapon is reverse projection, the art of reflecting people's assumptions and motivations back at them until they expose their true nature. Most people project their own fears, desires, and insecurities onto others. Master this principle, and you can make them reveal everything while you reveal nothing. Here's how it works. Instead of defending against their projections, you simply reflect them back with subtle questions. Someone accuses you of being selfish. You respond with genuine curiosity. "That's interesting. What makes you think about selfishness right now?" Someone suggests you're jealous of their success. You smile and ask, "Do you find that jealousy comes up a lot in your relationships?" The beauty of reverse projection is that it forces them to examine their own motivations while keeping yours hidden. They came to attack you and ended up in therapy with themselves. The conversation shifts from being about you to being about their own psychological landscape. This technique is particularly devastating with manipulative people because it neutralizes their primary weapon, psychological pressure. They're used to people getting defensive, explaining themselves, falling into their traps. Instead, you become a mirror that shows them exactly what they're doing. A family member tries to guilt you into attending an event you don't want to attend. Instead of explaining why you can't go or defending your choice, you ask, "It sounds like you're feeling anxious about this event. What's making it feel so important that everyone else be there?" Suddenly, they're explaining their insecurities instead of attacking your boundaries. The psychological principle behind this is simple. People hate having their own tactics used against them. They especially hate being forced to examine why they're using those tactics in the first place. Most manipulation relies on the target not questioning the manipulator's motives. Reverse projection makes questioning the manipulator the entire focus of the interaction. History's most effective negotiators and leaders mastered this art. They let others reveal their positions, fears, and weaknesses while keeping their own cards hidden. Sun Tzu called it knowing your enemy and knowing yourself, but in this case, you make them know themselves while they learn nothing about you. But projection is just the beginning. The next weapon controls something even more fundamental. The fourth psychological weapon is controlled scarcity, deliberately limiting access to yourself, your time, and your attention to increase your perceived value and psychological dominance. In a world where everyone is desperately available, constantly accessible, and perpetually accommodating, scarcity becomes the ultimate differentiator. This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about actually being hard to get. Your time becomes precious because you treat it as precious. Your attention becomes valuable because you don't give it away to anyone who asks. Your presence becomes sought after because it can't be taken for granted. Start with your availability. The person who responds to every text immediately, answers every call on the first ring, and drops everything to accommodate others has trained the world to treat them as infinitely accessible. This signals low value, few options, and desperate eagerness to please. Instead, you respond when it's convenient for you, not hours later out of spite, but when you've finished what you were doing and can give proper attention. This simple shift changes everything. People start to respect your time because you demonstrate that it has value. The psychology runs deeper than social dynamics. Scarcity triggers what researchers call the scarcity principle. People assign higher value to things that are rare or difficult to obtain. This applies to human attention and presence just as much as material goods. Watch what happens when you stop being the person who always says yes. When someone asks for your time and you say, "I'm not available then, but I could do this other time," something shifts in their perception. They start to wonder what you're doing that's more important than their request. They begin to value the time they do get with you. This extends beyond availability to emotional investment. You stop being the person who cares more about every relationship than the other person does. You match energy levels instead of exceeding them. When someone gives you minimal effort, you give minimal effort back. When someone prioritizes you, you prioritize them. The result is that people start competing for your attention instead of assuming they have it. They begin to invest more in interactions with you because they can't take those interactions for granted. Your scarcity makes every moment with you feel more significant. But scarcity without substance is just game playing. The next weapon shows you how to wield influence without anyone realizing you're doing it. The fifth weapon is covert dominance. The ability to lead and control situations through subtle psychological positioning rather than overt displays of authority. This is perhaps the most sophisticated form of power because it operates below the conscious awareness of others. Covert dominance isn't about being the loudest person in the room or demanding attention. It's about controlling the frame of every interaction through tone, body language, and strategic positioning. You become the person others unconsciously defer to without understanding why. It starts with how you occupy space. Instead of shrinking into corners or apologizing for your presence, you take up the space you deserve. You sit fully in chairs, stand with proper posture, make eye contact that lingers just long enough to establish dominance without being aggressive. These micro behaviors signal confidence and authority at a subconscious level. Your voice becomes a weapon of influence. You speak slightly slower than normal, forcing others to match your pace. You use strategic pauses to emphasize important points. You lower your volume just enough that people have to lean in to hear you clearly. This makes every word feel more significant and makes others invest more energy in listening. The frame control aspect is crucial. In every conversation, someone is setting the emotional and logical framework. Most people accept whatever frame others create. You learn to subtly establish your own frame through assumptions and presuppositions built into your language. Instead of asking, "Would it be okay if we meet at 3?" you say, "Let's meet at 3." Instead of, "Do you think we should try this approach?" you say, "This approach will work best." These aren't demands. They're gentle assumptions of leadership that others usually accept without question. The most powerful aspect of covert dominance is that it feels natural to everyone involved. People don't feel manipulated or controlled. They feel like they're interacting with someone who naturally commands respect. This makes it sustainable and relationship, preserving while still establishing your psychological authority. Machiavelli understood this principle deeply. He wrote about the importance of appearing to be led by the people while actually leading them. The most effective power is the kind that others don't consciously recognize as power. But sometimes covert influence isn't enough. Sometimes you need to redirect hostile energy entirely. The sixth weapon is emotional redirection. The ability to take negative energy directed at you and channel it into outcomes that benefit you instead of drain you. Most people absorb hostility, envy, or disrespect like emotional sponges, allowing others' negative emotions to poison their own psychological state. Emotional redirection turns you into a psychological aikido master. Instead of absorbing the attack or fighting it directly, you redirect the energy in a direction that serves you. Someone's anger becomes motivation for your success. Their envy becomes confirmation that you're moving in the right direction. Their disrespect becomes information about their own character flaws. Here's how it works in practice. A colleague makes a snide comment about your recent promotion, clearly coming from a place of jealousy. Instead of getting defensive or hurt, you redirect that energy. You thank them for reminding you how fortunate you are, then use their negativity as fuel to excel even further in your new role. The psychological principle is that emotions are energy, and energy can be redirected rather than absorbed. When someone directs hostility toward you, they're essentially offering you free motivation. Their negative emotions about your success become proof that you're succeeding. Their attempts to diminish you become reasons to grow larger. This redirection also has a profound effect on the person directing negativity at you. When their attacks don't wound you, but actually seem to make you stronger, they experience cognitive dissonance. They expected to hurt you and instead helped you. This often stops their negative behavior more effectively than any direct confrontation. The redirect can be external or internal. Externally, you might use their criticism as market research. What are they really telling you about how you're perceived? Internally, you use their hostility as confirmation that you're on the right path. People don't attack what they don't perceive as threatening to their own position. Some of history's most successful individuals mastered this art. They transformed every critic into an unwitting motivator, every enemy into a source of useful information, every attack into evidence of their own rising power. But redirection requires having strong boundaries in the first place. The final weapon ensures no one can cross those boundaries. The seventh and most crucial weapon is ruthless boundaries. The absolute refusal to accept disrespectful behavior regardless of who it comes from or what consequences might follow. Most people have boundaries made of tissue paper. They bend, break, and dissolve the moment someone applies pressure. Ruthless boundaries are different. They're non-negotiable lines that you enforce consistently, calmly, and without apology. When someone crosses them, there are immediate consequences. Not anger, not explanation, not negotiation, just consequences. This starts with identifying what you will and won't accept. Someone consistently shows up late to meetings with you. The boundary is that meetings start on time, with or without them. Someone interrupts you repeatedly in conversations. The boundary is that you stop talking mid-sentence and wait for them to finish, then continue as if they hadn't spoken. The power of ruthless boundaries lies in their consistency and the lack of emotional drama surrounding their enforcement. You don't get angry when someone crosses a boundary. You simply implement the predetermined consequence. This removes their ability to manipulate you through emotional reactions. A friend constantly cancels plans at the last minute. The boundary might be that you stop making plans with them entirely. No discussion, no ultimatum, no dramatic confrontation. You simply stop offering your time to someone who doesn't respect it. When they ask why, you never invite them anymore. You calmly explain that you value reliable friendships. The psychological effect is that people quickly learn what they can and cannot do around you. They stop testing your limits because they know exactly where those limits are and what happens when they cross them. This actually makes relationships easier and more comfortable for everyone involved. Ruthless boundaries aren't about being harsh. They're about being clear. Most people appreciate knowing exactly where they stand with you. It eliminates guesswork and reduces conflict because expectations are crystal clear. The most important boundary is the one around your own self-respect. You refuse to accept treatment that violates your sense of dignity, regardless of the relationship or circumstances. This single boundary, enforced consistently, transforms how everyone in your life treats you. But wielding these weapons comes with responsibility. Power without wisdom becomes cruelty, and cruelty ultimately destroys the wielder along with their targets. Before we go further, let's address the shadow that comes with this knowledge. These psychological weapons are powerful enough to damage relationships and hurt people if used carelessly. The line between protection and predation is thinner than most people realize. These tools are meant to shield you from disrespect and manipulation, not to become a source of disrespect and manipulation yourself. The goal is to command respect while maintaining your humanity, to be powerful without being cruel, to be untouchable without being unreachable. Remember that everyone you interact with is fighting battles you know nothing about. While you're learning to protect yourself psychologically, maintain empathy for others' struggles. Use these weapons defensively against those who would harm you, not offensively against those who simply disagree with you. The truly powerful person doesn't need to constantly demonstrate their power. They use it sparingly, strategically, and always with awareness of the impact on others. Your goal is to be respected, not feared for the wrong reasons. This isn't about becoming a psychological sociopath. It's about developing the emotional and mental armor necessary to thrive in a world that will gladly consume the weak. Use these tools to protect your peace, preserve your energy, and create space for genuine connections with people who deserve your authentic self. The darkness in dark psychology isn't about evil. It's about the uncomfortable truths that most people prefer to ignore. Accept these truths, master these tools, but never lose sight of your fundamental humanity. Now, let's put this knowledge into action with a challenge that will prove whether you're ready to transform or destined to remain the same. For the next 7 days, you're going to implement one of these psychological weapons each day. This isn't theory anymore. This is your transformation laboratory. Day 1, master strategic silence. When someone tries to provoke you, bait you, or draw you into unnecessary explanation, simply remain silent. Count to 5. Watch their discomfort grow. Feel your power expand. Day 2, practice strategic indifference. Someone tries to manipulate your emotions, jealousy, guilt, anger, fear. Your response remains completely neutral. That's interesting. Becomes your default response to manipulation attempts. Document how this changes their behavior toward you. Day 3, employ reverse projection. When someone makes assumptions about your motivations or tries to assign emotions to you, reflect it back with genuine curiosity. What makes you think about that? Becomes your psychological mirror. Watch them examine themselves instead of attacking you. Day 4, implement controlled scarcity. Stop being immediately available to everyone. Respond to texts when convenient, not instantly. Make plans based on your schedule, not everyone else's. Notice how this changes people's level of investment in interactions with you. Day 5. Practice covert dominance. Take up space. Speak with authority. Set conversational frames through assumptions rather than questions. Lead without announcing that you're leading. Feel the subtle shift in how others respond to your presence. Day 6. Redirect emotional attacks. When someone directs negativity toward you, transform it into fuel for your own growth. Their jealousy becomes confirmation of your success. Their criticism becomes free market research. Their hostility becomes motivation. Day 7. Enforce ruthless boundaries. Identify one behavior you will no longer accept from anyone. When someone crosses that boundary, implement immediate, calm consequences. No explanation, no negotiation, no second chances. Each day, write down what happened. How did people respond differently? How did you feel? What resistance did you encounter from others? What resistance did you encounter from yourself? This week will show you exactly who you can become and who you've been settling for being. The person you are on day 8 will be fundamentally different from the person you were on day 0, but only if you have the courage to actually implement what you've learned. 7 days, 7 weapons, 1 transformation. The question isn't whether these tools work. The question is whether you have the strength to use them. Picture yourself 6 months from now. You walk into rooms and energy shifts. People listen when you speak, not because you demand attention, but because you command it. Your phone isn't buzzing constantly with people who expect immediate responses because they know your time has value. The colleagues who used to dismiss your ideas now seek your opinion. The friends who used to cancel plans now prioritize time with you. The family members who used to guilt trip you now respect your decisions. This isn't fantasy. This is the inevitable result of consistent application of psychological principles. You're no longer the person who explains themselves to people who didn't ask for an explanation. You're no longer the backup plan, the safe option, the one who always accommodates. You've become someone whose presence adds value to every situation, whose absence is noticed, whose respect must be earned rather than assumed. Your relationships improve because they're built on mutual respect rather than one-sided giving. Your career advances because you're seen as someone with natural authority and unshakable confidence. Your family dynamics shift because you're no longer the person who accepts whatever treatment others offer. This transformation ripples out beyond just how others treat you. When you respect yourself enough to enforce boundaries, you inspire others to do the same. When you demonstrate that manipulation won't work on you, you give others permission to resist manipulation in their own lives. You become a model of what's possible when someone decides they deserve better treatment and takes the psychological steps necessary to command it. People start asking how you changed, what you did differently, why you seem so much more confident and centered. The future version of yourself doesn't need these weapons anymore because they've become integrated into your personality. Silence, indifference, boundaries. These aren't techniques you use, they're who you are. You've become someone who naturally commands respect because you've learned to respect yourself first. But this future only exists if you choose it, if you implement what you've learned, if you push through the initial discomfort of changing patterns that have defined you for years, if you prioritize your own psychological development over other people's comfort with your weakness. The path is clear. The tools are in your hands. The only question is whether you'll use them. This is your psychological rebirth. The weak, approval-seeking, endlessly accommodating version of yourself dies here. In its place rises someone who cannot be dismissed, disrespected, or taken for granted. Someone who moves through the world with quiet authority and unshakable self-possession. You are no longer the person who apologizes for taking up space. You are the person who deserves the space they occupy. You are no longer the person who explains their worth to others. You are the person whose worth is self-evident. You are no longer the person who accepts whatever treatment others offer. You are the person who sets the standards for how they will be treated. This transformation isn't comfortable. Shedding your old self never is. People who benefited from your previous weakness will resist your new strength. They'll try to guilt you back into old patterns, test your new boundaries, challenge your newfound authority. This resistance is proof that you're changing something important. Some relationships won't survive your transformation. The connections built on your willingness to accept poor treatment will dissolve when you stop accepting poor treatment. This isn't a loss. It's a revelation of what those relationships actually were. What remains will be stronger, healthier, more genuine. The people who respect your boundaries are the people worth having in your life. The relationships that improve when you start respecting yourself are the relationships worth preserving. You are becoming untouchable, not because you're unreachable, but because you're unshakable. Not because you're cold, but because you're selective. Not because you don't care, but because you care enough about yourself to demand the respect you deserve. The person reading these words right now is the last version of yourself who will ever wonder if they deserve better treatment. From this moment forward, you know you deserve it, and more importantly, you know how to command it. Welcome to your new life. Welcome to being untouchable. This isn't just another video you watch and forget. This is your declaration of independence from a life of settling for less than you deserve. By engaging with this content, by liking, subscribing, and sharing, you're making a statement to yourself and the world. You choose respect over approval, strength over comfort, power over powerlessness. The subscribe button isn't just a notification setting. It's your commitment to continued growth. It's your acknowledgement that psychological development doesn't end with one video, one insight, one transformation. It's an ongoing journey of becoming more powerful, more respected, more untouchable with each passing day. Every like is a vote for your own potential. Every share is you helping someone else break free from the same patterns of weakness and disrespect that once trapped you. Every comment where you write, "Respect over approval," is you reinforcing your new identity publicly. The people who engage with this content aren't just viewers. They're members of an exclusive psychological elite. They're the ones who chose to face uncomfortable truths rather than live comfortable lies. They're the ones who decided to develop real power rather than pretend they didn't want it. This community understands what most people never will, that respect isn't given freely, that boundaries must be enforced, that power is something you take rather than something you're handed. We've chosen the harder path of psychological mastery over the easier path of emotional victimhood. When you subscribe, you're joining a movement of people who refuse to be walked over, dismissed, or taken for granted. People who understand that true strength comes from self-respect, real influence comes from psychological positioning, and lasting power comes from mastering the darkness in human nature rather than pretending it doesn't exist. Your engagement sends a signal to the algorithm and to the universe: more content like this, more tools for psychological dominance, more weapons for the untouchable. You're not just consuming content, you're demanding transformation. The comments section becomes our training ground. Share your victories from the 7-day challenge. Document the moments when these weapons proved their worth. Help others who are still fighting battles you've already won. This is more than entertainment. This is education in the kind of psychological warfare they don't teach in schools but should. This is preparation for a world that respects strength and devours weakness. Like this video if you're ready to be untouchable. Subscribe if you're committed to psychological mastery. Share if you believe others deserve to break free from lives of quiet desperation and endless accommodation. The untouchable don't just watch, they act. What will you choose?